About when it comes to milestones for teammates, like Jackson's approaching record, is that anymore in your head of like, it would be cool to get him the catches he needs to get that?
Oh yeah, we're for sure going to try and get guys, the catches, yards, whatever it is. I mean, like I said, with respect to the game, obviously, but yeah, I mean, you want to at least go out with a bang.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Happy Friday. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Connor Rogers, Jay Croucher, Lawrence Jackson. Of course, on Fridays, Denny Carter will be joining us in just a bit. Geno Smith, guys, aware of that money. That good incentive money, and so are we. We're going to be breaking that down today.
Yep, lots to get into. No Matthew Berry today. He's on the Kawhi Leonard rest plan.
Yes.
Got to get the knees right. Got to ice up the knees.
Got to get him ready for the playoffs.
Healthy.
For the playoffs.
Yeah.
Just
need him in that game 7.
Key load management, especially with the big Sunday Night Football on deck for Mr. Matthew Berry.
He needs, now that he's turned 60,
he needs
his
rest.
birthday the other day. Needs to be rested up for FNIA.
So we're going to get through a lot today. Our last What the Mainstream Media of the year, what they don't want you to know when Denny joins us. We're going to preview some of the highest scoring games of Week 18, as we always do on Fridays. But we're going to start with those notable contract incentives that you might be interested for a variety of reasons, whether you're a sicko playing fantasy the final week of the season, whether you're looking to get in on some betting action. Some big-time Week 18 incentives. You see, Baker Mayfield's got an enormous amount of money on the line, $2.5 million. Kyler Murray, just shy of $1 million, $750,000. Geno Smith, guys, a whopper there, and not a lot that he has to get through. Let's start with Baker, though. He could earn $500,000 for the following, Jay. Top 10 in passing yards, he's currently third. That's looking good. Top 10 in passing touchdowns, that's looking great. He's tied for second. Top 5 in passer rating, he's currently fourth. Top 5 in the NFC or top 10 in NFL in completion percentage, he's currently second. Top 5 in the NFC or top 10 in the NFL in YP, yards per attempt, he's currently seventh. $2.5 million is looking good for Mr. Mayfield.
But they all kind of seem home. He just needs to avoid picks for the passer rating.
Right.
I think the thing with all of these incentives, look, from a fantasy perspective, they give you a really good framework for expectations and how guys are going to go about it and what they will go out of their ways to get. But from a betting perspective, like, the market knows about all of this stuff as well. I think the way to bet into this, for the most part, is look at the live lines. Because if these guys start out slow, the market won't, I don't think, necessarily adjust to the fact that all of a sudden you'll start arbitrarily skewing, like artificially skewing the game plan to get these guys what they need. And particularly with the skill position players, like there's just going to be feeding, and we'll get into them, but like feeding Mike Evans, J.K. Dobbins, there's like 58 yards, like there'll be more carries for those guys. So I think the live market is the best way to look into this, and the idea that, they're not trending that great. Well, they're going to be starting trending great when Mike Evans gets 7 targets in a row.
I would take a lot of alt lines and go lower and just parlay some of them together. Like we just saw the Geno Smith and the Baker Mayfield, and like you said, Jay, like the books, they know this, right? So instead of trying to get it right at that line, just play it safe and go a little under that, just to make sure you get something out of it.
I like that a lot. And Geno is who we heard from at the top. He was very honest that, hey, we're aware of it. We're not going to mess with the integrity of the game. Geno has a lot on the line here. $6 million in total incentives on the line because he's got 3 in play, and they're worth $2 million each. He needs 185 more passing yards. He needs a win, which, by the way, the Rams are not really exactly playing this game to win.
So,
that's important. And then Lawrence, the last one, finishing above a 69.7% completion rate.
He can dunk them.
He's at 70.2. Just act Charbonnet. Get those hands ready.
Just keep it clean, man. Short to intermediate. Like you said, not going to be much resistance on the other side. They're going to, obviously, the Rams guys who are playing in the game, they will play hard. They will play to win, but it won't be their best players. So looking good for Geno.
Yeah, with Geno, honestly, like, I think he's going to be fine with the completion percentage anyway, but if he starts like 12 for 26 or something, that's the type of thing where you're live betting over receptions for Zach Charbonnet, because all of a sudden, during the dink and dunk show, to be able to get that completion percentage back up.
Every single tight end as well. And then Kyler Murray here, guys, he needs 50 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown for $750,000. So it feels like it'll be interesting to see where Kyler Murray's anytime touchdown ultimately lands before kickoff, Jay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another one. Like, when these are easily in reach, they typically do get ticked off. And we'll get to some of the ones, particularly with the receivers, thinking of DeAndre Hopkins in particular, where it might be a little bit outlandish. But I mean, Kyler Murray, 50 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown seems eminently doable.
Yeah, so Kyler, anytime touchdown, as we sit here today, this morning, on Friday morning, plus 170.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
I'm actually
now,
a little surprised it's that heavy plus money.
It probably because he's got one rushing touchdown in his last 6 games, but when you know you need it. Now, and look, I get it, $750K for a guy who makes more than $40 million a year. You might say, oh, he don't care about that. The hell he don't. Like, I still want $20. Like, I want 10, 20. That's more than what you had. So, yeah, Kyler Murray, like, I like that plus 170, just knowing you have to get that.
Yeah, you know what the beauty of that is, too, is that Kyler Murray's the quarterback, and he
Bingo.
can change the plays. The goal line.
You get down by the goal line.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Gannon. I thought that there was a run blitz coming, so I checked into a pass play, and there was no one open.
You done got Trey McBride his receiving touchdown already. There's no James Conner, so, yeah, why not?
Some notable incentives for wide receivers. We talked about all the ones on the line for Baker Mayfield, as well as teammate Mike Evans has some big ones in play. He needs 5 receptions and 85 yards for $3 million. Courtland Sutton needs 82 receiving yards for $500,000. DeAndre Hopkins can earn $250K for each of the following: 9 catches, 140 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. But we do know the Chiefs plan to rest a lot of their veterans. Mike Evans, very interesting one, is the Bucs are playing to win. And while Baker Mayfield knows that, he also knows Mike Evans is playing for a little bit more. Listen in on this.
I mean, let's put things in perspective. You're talking about tying somebody that has all receiving records across the NFL throughout history. You're talking about somebody that's consistently been somebody in this community that has raised people up, continue to be the face of this franchise and be there for people. And so that record is important for us, for to get him to that. Obviously, winning is the most important part, but those two things go hand in hand. Mike's a huge part of this offense. He's a huge part of this passing game. And so getting him involved early and often is a lot of the reasons we've had success. And so those things go hand in hand. Yeah, there's balance, and the most important thing is winning. But I see it playing out. If we win, that's Mike's getting the record.
If you get 5 receptions and 85 yards, you drink for free here at the Happy Hour Bar. Mike Evans, I thought it was really well put, by the way, there, Lawrence, how Baker makes it known, like, yes, this is about winning, and, yeah, we also care about Mike's milestones. But he also said, like, he's doing this for the money, but this is also a person that deserves all of this recognition.
There's that, and then there's the part where he says, well, it goes hand in hand. Like, if Mike Evans doesn't get 5 for 85, then they probably won't win more often than not. Like, throughout Mike Evans' years with whoever he had at quarterback, Jameis Winston, Tom Brady, Mike Evans being successful has always tied to the Bucs winning. We just saw him go for 159 and 2 touchdowns a couple weeks ago. They won the game because of him. So I think that'll be easy. They'll get him the ball as usual, any type of way. They'll throw him a screen. Right. They could go deep, intermediate, whatever have you. So I don't even consider this as like kind of spamming it to get the record. They need to win the game, and they need Mike Evans to win the game.
Yep, no, absolutely, I agree there. That one seems, and also that's a good one because it's correlated with the Bucs' success. They need to win the game. A lot of their success likely runs through Mike Evans, so it would be pretty surprising, barring injury or something like that, that he would get shorter than 85 yards.
And the same for Courtland Sutton. I mean, the Broncos need to win. He needs 82 receiving yards here. He's typically Bo Nix's number 1 target, and the Chiefs are resting some capacity of starters.
Yeah, so I think this is the most interesting incentive one because the Broncos, they're a team, they can't screw around. They need to win to get into the playoffs. So that is one where you wouldn't think that, if it's a close game, they're not going to be going out of their way to get Sutton's incentive home. They're going to have to win the game. But at the same time, I do think there is a potential betting angle here so Sutton's line is 72.5. And the way that I would approach this is if it gets to be a blowout, and the way the market works is that when the score gets out of hand, say the Broncos are up 21 in the mid-third quarter or something, Sutton's receiving prop, Bo Nix's passing prop, they just naturally go down because then you're in a run script. I do think that if they are up comfortably, this is something where they could go out of their way to get the ball to Courtland Sutton. And, $500,000 is certainly not nothing, so that would be an angle I think is, alternate overs on Sutton if the game is out of hand.
All right, we also got your running back incentives here, and definitely some interesting ones at play. That'll be a close call, starting with Joe Mixon, because Joe Mixon needs 107 more rushing yards for a $250,000 bonus. We heard from D'Amico Ryans already say that, hey, guys are going to play. We don't know how long they'll play is the biggest question with this one. Tony Pollard, he needs 83 more rushing yards for $250,000. He needs 2 more rushing touchdowns for $200,000. We know how banged up Pollard has been down the stretch of this year. Although, once again, the Texans could be playing backups in the second half of that game. And then J.K. Dobbins, he needs 58 more rushing yards for $150,000. And, Lawrence, that's one where Coach Harbaugh said, like, listen, we're playing for seeding. We're playing to win the game. I could see Harbaugh taking the Dan Campbell route, even with the questions of keeping guys healthy.
He that type of guy, and you got to keep this. Like, the Chargers, I don't think it's just, like, people are expecting the Chargers to get to the playoffs and lose, like, I guess because they expect them to play the Ravens. I don't think it's that simple. Like, this is a well-coached team. J.K. Dobbins, a big part of this offense. You saw that, how the running game went down once he was out the past couple weeks. He gets back, and they're off and rolling in that running game again. So I fully expect J.K. Dobbins to get that 58 rushing yards here.
And then on the other end, Jay, Tony Pollard and Joe Mixon, these are a little bit harder to figure out. Yeah. Pollard more so because of health, although if healthy, he's the guy in the backfield with Tajay Spears hurt. And then Joe Mixon, that's got to be the biggest, like, flip a coin, because D'Amico Ryan's saying everybody's going to play. That could also mean that they play a quarter like a preseason game, get a good drive or two, and then pull everyone.
Yeah, Mixon is one where I would be pretty surprised if you got 107 rushing yards, between the fact that the game is meaningless. Also, he's been banged up. He's had a massive workload all season. This just feels like a Dameon Pierce, Dare Ogunbowale type of spot. Pollard is a bit more viable. He's also been banged up, though, but certainly that is one where if he is healthy and he's fine, that I think they would push to get him those incentives.
All right, some tight end incentives here. Zach Ertz tops this one after a great season with the Commanders. He can earn $250,000 for each of the following: 9 catches, 90 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. That does seem like a lot, but keep in mind the Commanders are not only playing to win for seeding, and they're playing to win against a Dallas secondary that has really, really struggled. They've been banged up throughout the year. Mike Gesicki needs 3 yards for $125,000.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Burrow will have his eyes on that one. Tyler Conklin only needs 1 catch for $250,000, but Conklin hasn't practiced this week. So that, I don't know if that's one where you just throw him out there on the field.
If I'm him,
I'm out there.
I'm taking the crutches out there if I have to.
Yeah.
Going out there with a sling, a neck brace, whatever have you. Like Aaron Rodgers, give me a little quick seam route. Hey, give me that, man.
He has to play, right?
I mean, you would think. And usually his receiving prop this time of the year hovers around 1.5 catches. So
this is like the Josh Allen starts thing. Just like have Josh Allen take a snap, throw a screen pass to Tyler Conklin. Who cares?
Rodgers is hyper aware of this stuff too.
Yeah.
Like that's if he's active before the game, he's actually more interesting than him betting on any kind of receiving prop. His betting is under. Because if he's 1.5 catches or more, just bet the under. Think he gets the catch and comes out of the game.
Yep. This is Aaron Rodgers' way to finally contribute to the New York Jets.
Yes,
Tyler Conklin
and the thing,
$250,000.
too, a guy like Tyler Conklin, it's not like his next contract is going to be $6 million per year. So to be able to have a chance to get $250,000 for a catch, like, I'd go out there and do it for him.
Yeah, get your head knocked off and it'd still be worth it.
Just give me $50K. I'll take $50K, be in the hospital.
What chance this is Rodgers' last game in the NFL?
I think higher than we originally expected, the way he's talked the last couple of weeks. Maybe he just realizes, like, there's not going to be a huge market for him if he's cut. Or maybe the body, he's played through like 7 different injuries this year. Maybe it's just time. It's just time. He's looking for that 500 touchdown, but in his words, I won't lose sleep if I don't get it.
I reckon he'll lose sleep. Someone who has gone out of his way with his pristine touchdown-interception ratio. I think he'll get a touchdown this week.
I think so, too.
Get one this week.
The Zach Ertz one, while these numbers are really high, Lawrence, the reality is he's a big part of this offense in a game they're playing to win. I don't expect him to go out there and get the 2 touchdowns, but there's a world where, 9 catches is a lot, but I feel like, and they're playing to win, so they won't just spam him, as we say.
Yeah.
But there's a world where he's heavily involved with this thought on their mind, especially if they start to blow out the Cowboys. You never know.
I think they would have to actively try to do it. Like, he hasn't had 9 catches in any game this season. he hasn't had more than 7 catches in any game this season. So this is the type of incentive where it was like last week you should have started to try to do that.
Yeah.
But he had a good game last week too. Like he got back on track. He scored 2 touchdowns last week.
Maybe that's the one.
That's why the likelihood of him doing that twice in a row in a game that they're actually going to, actually play in, it's hard to do.
All right, guys, there's a bonus one here. The rookie receptions record is on the line. Now, Brock Bowers already passed the record that Puka Nacua set last season. Puka has set it at 105. Bowers is already at 108. But Malik Neighbors right now is third all-time with 104. As we saw, Jay, last week, Drew Lock, big fan, rightfully so, of Malik Neighbors.
Has this record been devalued a little bit?
This year now, when Puka did it, it was amazing.
Yes.
Well, you had Waddle who had it just a couple years because he broke Waddle's record.
It's not like Hank Aaron's home run record.
Yeah, no, this is
all
all
dudes.
dudes.
Points record.
This is 4 dudes we're talking about breaking it within a 3 or 4 year span.
Yeah. So it's like a relay race. I don't think they won't go super out of their way, you would think, to be able to hold the record for a year until it gets broken next year by whoever.
I think Malik goes back to Lawrence's point with Baker, just goes hand in hand with the Giants winning. And I know Giants fans are worried about draft position, but the Giants are not as a team. Drew Lock, this is a game where Malik Neighbors can go nuclear against backups and the fact that he's just that good.
Yep, absolutely.
The Giants, that's what people don't get. The organization might be thinking about one way.
Players aren't.
But Drew Lock trying to play, he ain't on the Giants next year. That's not for certain. So dudes is playing for their job. So, yeah.
All right, here's the Week 18 injuries we're tracking for Saturday. We'll start with Saturday. Chase Brown with that ankle injury is questionable. T. Higgins dealing with both an ankle and knee injury. He's questionable. Justice Hill's out with a concussion. Jerome Ford has been ruled out with an ankle injury. David Njoku has been ruled out with a knee injury in a game where the Ravens are around 17 to 18-point favorites. The Sunday injuries we're tracking. This list is obviously longer with more games. Anthony Richardson with the back injury. Tua Tagovailoa with the hip injury. He's been limited this week. When they speak of him, they haven't been very optimistic. That could very well be a Snoop Huntley game against the Jets. Aaron Jones with a quad injury. Alvin Kamara with a groin injury. Kamara has not practiced all week. Aaron Jones has been limited. Tony Pollard with the ankle, he's been limited, but it's been the case for Tony Pollard really the second half of the season. Amir Abdullah has a foot injury. He hasn't practiced this week. Malik Neighbors, he's been limited with a toe injury, but Neighbors has been dealing with multiple lower body injuries much of the season and has been able to gut through on game day. Drake London has been limited with a knee injury. Ladd McConkey has been limited with a toe injury. George Kittle dealing with both ankle and hamstring injuries, but another guy that is often limited throughout the week and finds a way to play. But a trickle effect of that, Jay, is that Brock Purdy is not expected to play Week 18, and obviously a lot of concerns around maybe the long term of this injury for Purdy.
Yeah, it's not great. It's been a rough year for Purdy, who has had some really high highs and has shown different elements to his game. He's moving around more, using his legs, but he has dealt with injuries this year. Obviously, he had the elbow injury in the NFC title game against the Eagles, so some concerns there. So it looks like it'll be the Josh Dobbs show. Do you think that Dobbs has any chance to kind of elevate his standing, or is he just constantly going to be a backup quarterback? I
think he's probably locked in as a backup quarterback. It feels like he has these big spark moments because of the nature of his play style, but this goes back to what you just said about Drew Lock. Like all of these guys, Josh Dobbs, Drew Lock, Carson Wentz, they're playing, Jimmy Garoppolo, they're playing to get into a quarterback competition next summer. Not be given anything, but be once again looked at as a guy, hey, get into summer, see what we have, and compete.
Josh Dobbs will, probably be a type of guy where you could trust him for a few games. The reason why I wouldn't predict him doing something like Sam Darnold is because you got to string those type of games together. Sam Darnold is still a former #1 overall pick. So if he plays 5 good games in a row to start the season like he did, you're like, okay, we got something going. If you're Josh Dobbs, you can't have 3 good games and have 1 or 2 bad games after that, because then it's like, oh, all right. That's why we see you as like a top-tier backup more so as a potential starter.
Some other news here, guys. The Cardinals placed James Conner on IR. Chris Olave, who's had a serious concussion for a long time now, he was a full participant in Thursday's practice.
How are they doing that?
I hope he doesn't play.
Yeah.
It's one of those where
No need.
there's just no need. Let's get Chris Olave right and healthy for next season. But it's good to see him at least practicing in full. Obviously, if you're missing some players and you're still playing Week 18 or you're looking for some DFS strategies, some top waiver ads. These are players available in at least 50% of the leagues. Joe Flacco, of course, he's got Jacksonville. That's why he's a top 15 play. Tyler Huntley against the Jets, right outside of the top 15. Michael Carter, who obviously gets touches in that Arizona backfield when both Connor and Benson, one of the two or both are hurt. He's a top 15 play. Blake Corum should get a heavy workload against Seattle. Alexander Mattison, we talked about how Amir Abdullah hasn't practiced this week. Jalen McMillan's been a bigger part of the Bucs offense. Marvin Mims has been a bigger part of the Broncos offense. Brandon Cooks against the Commanders. The CeeDee Lamb has been shut down for the year. Chika Okonkwo has a rapport with Mason Rudolph, and Juwan Johnson against the Bucs in a pretty barren wasteland at tight end. For the last time this season, though, we welcome in our friend Denny Carter for what the mainstream media doesn't want us to know.
Geno has every reason to cook this week. We have incentives here. Air horn. Geno Smith, 185 passing yards.
I want to be deaf.
From a 2 minute.
Yes, yes. That's the worst air horn. I want to be deaf. That's like not a bit. That is like
great.
Physically the literal air horn you buy at
you.
the dollar store.
Yeah.
The junkiest one. That's a real air horn.
Yeah, producer Adam comes through.
What the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. Denny, that's a loud air horn. Are you okay?
I can now hear out of my right ear. My left ear is still iffy, but it was worth it, guys. It was worth it. We needed air horns. We were talking about contract incentives, millions of dollars on the line, like you guys were talking about. Adam did the right thing, and I'm not going to sue him.
All right, Denny. Well, I've discussed on this show, and I just haven't seen many discuss, that Amir Abdullah is dealing with an injury. And once again, people are trying to hide Alexander Mattison for reasons unknown. What have you uncovered here with this Raiders backfield that is kind of a year-long mystery?
I've looked strongly into this, guys. Abdullah's out with it, not out, but he's not practicing with a foot injury. You have to monitor that situation on Friday and into the weekend. But we have a situation here with Alexander Mattison, where if he catches a ludicrous 8 passes this week against the Chargers, he gets $125,000 bonus to go along with the $125,000 bonus he already got for receptions in the 2024 season. So I would guess that he has a shot at that, which is like PPR heaven, really. I mean, that's like what we're looking for. I don't care what he does on the ground. He could have 15 carries for 30 yards. He gets 8-9 receptions in this game. He's a legit option if you're a sicko playing in Week 18 leagues, or if you're putting together DFS lineups on DraftKings.
Okay, Denny, it's a big Week 18. There is the 1 seed in the NFC on the line. There's perhaps an MVP on the line on Saturday. So let's talk about Dawson Knox. What are you expecting out of the great Bills tight end with the expectation that Buffalo will rest starters?
Yeah, leave that Lions-Vikings stuff, that exciting, consequential stuff. Leave that to the mainstream, okay? We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Dawson Knox, who is 89 yards and 8 catches away from receiving a $200,000 contract bonus, okay? So if he's active, and I'm not sure he's going to be, okay? I looked into it. I called my people with the Bills, couldn't get any answers. Of course, they're censoring me once again, but Dalton Kincaid's not going to be active, I'm pretty sure. So if Knox is active, I would suggest that the Bills just pepper him with targets and get this guy his money. Lawrence talked about what he would do to get out there and get these contract incentives, and I actually think it's very selfless for him to risk life and limb to get Tyler Conklin some extra money. That I have to credit Lawrence for that. I would go out and do it for Dawson Knox. I just want to be on the record.
Denny, what is your expectation for this Bills offense when you hear from the coaching staff, they're like, hey, we want to keep Josh Allen's starting streak, he's going to go out there. Do you think this is the mode, though, of where he literally takes a snap and hands the ball off and comes out of the game, or is this a situation where he gets a drive, 2 drives? This is another one like the Texans that could be a little difficult to predict.
I mean, they're going to have Josh Allen maybe drop back 15 yards and take a knee. Okay,
right.
They're not risking anything here because it's over if this guy drops back and God forbid pulls a hamstring or something. Okay, so yeah, I would say that it's probably going to be a handoff. I'm guessing it's not going to be a play action deep ball to Keon Coleman or something.
It might be.
It'd be awesome if it was. But.
Well, Denny, from one elite quarterback in Josh Allen to another, how do you feel about Carson Wentz this weekend?
Yeah, I'm not asking this question, guys, but many are. Is Carson Wentz as good as Patrick Mahomes? It is a question that's out there. Mahomes is not a Pro Bowler. Carson Wentz not a Pro Bowler. Therefore, we have questions. But yeah, he's interesting because Carson Wentz, last time he started was Week 18 last year when he played for the Rams, playing against San Francisco. Guys, he had 17 rushing attempts. Now, he didn't do a lot with them. He had 56 rushing yards. He did score a touchdown on the ground. He had 3 total touchdowns against the Niners and was kind of a revelation for DFS purposes on DraftKings. I'm not penciling him in for 17 rushes, but definitely like double-digit rushing attempts. And if you get that out of a quarterback, that's pretty cool.
Denny, looking at this game, we know it's a must-win game for the Broncos, and they have a good defense, which obviously would make you feel a little skeptical of the Chiefs' offense in this one. But like you said, just the volatility of Wentz. Does that make him intriguing from a DFS play? There's also a world where the Chiefs are are in a heavy pass script here because of the way the Broncos are playing, and that helps them as well, like you said, with the rushing and the drop-back attempts.
That's right. Yeah, it should be lots of dropbacks for the Chiefs. I would guess that they're going to be trailing in this one. We talked on the Roto World Football Show about the possibility that the Chiefs could just upset the Broncos here, which is not out of the realm of possibilities. It would be amazing. But we have a situation here, and this is something the media won't tell you. The Broncos play man coverage at the 4th highest rate in the league. That is usually inviting for rushing quarterbacks to go ahead, leave the pocket, and gain some yards with their legs. I think that's what we're going to have with Carson Wentz. That's why I think 10 rushing attempts is in the range of outcomes. Maybe some of those are in the red zone. Could get weird for Carson Wentz and the Kansas City offense in Week 18.
I'll just say, my biggest ever gambling loss was in 2021 when Carson Wentz went into Jacksonville in the final week of the season as a 17-point favorite, just needed to win the game to get into the playoffs, and he lost by double digits as a 17-point favorite. I very much need the Broncos to win on Sunday. So if Carson Wentz screws me again in the final week of the season, I will never forget. I already never forgive him, but I'm terrified of Carson Wentz. He's just he's very high variance. He has a lot of weird stuff. He was going to win an MVP once upon a time before he got hurt.
I think you should be scared. I'm with Denny on the fact, thinking that it is possible that the Chiefs could just simply, because, you still got a good run organization. You still got good coaching and stuff. And for what it's worth, Carson Wentz, like you said, he was a starter. He was close to winning an MVP, so it could happen.
You never know.
It's a division game. Like, the Chiefs are going to be game planning all out.
I need Chris Laddican in there ASAP. I want 4 quarters of Wentz.
I think he might play some.
I hope so.
And don't forget, too, this is a Broncos team that took the Chiefs down to the wire this season. There's something about not having them in the playoffs, having the Dolphins in the playoffs instead.
I just don't trust Bo Nix as a 10.5-point favorite with the playoffs on the line.
It'll be really interesting.
Play
Denny, good stuff as always. Thank you for joining us every Friday. And I would say enlightening us, Denny.
Yes.
That's the best way to put it.
It's been my pleasure, guys. I appreciate it.
For more of Denny's work, of course, read the Funnel Defense Report. That's at NBCSports.com/fantasy. We are going to take our first break today. But when we're back, we preview some of the biggest games coming up this weekend with the largest point totals. What's on tap is right after this.
What can you tell us about what you've seen so far in practice about Bailey?
He got a great arm. I know what he done in college. Broke all records. I think I seen him play a little bit when he was at the Patriots. So he a great passer. Great reading the defense. Gonna be excited to see him out there get a little opportunity to play.
That was Jerry Jeudy on Bailey Zappe. The Zappe Hour is back, guys.
Why are you laughing, Lawrence?
Jerry Jeudy was fired up.
Jerry Jeudy sound like me, like he just Googled Bailey Zappe stats from Western Kentucky.
The AI read. Yeah. Here's Matthew's top players for Browns-Ravens, by the way. The Ravens are now favored by 20 points, Jay. It was just 2 days ago. We were talking about this being a 17.5-point spread. It's now 20. The over-under is 41. I ask you this, Lawrence. After hearing Jerry Jeudy's confidence in his new starting quarterback.
Looked excited.
Who's got the better quarterback in this game?
Do you start him?
It's close. Do we start who? Bailey Zappe?
Jerry Jeudy, are we back?
Well, you know what? Based on last week, 18 targets, 12 receptions, 94 yards. If Bailey Zappe just stick to the plan, I don't see why not. They're going to be in a situation where they have to pass the ball. Jerry Jeudy's had one game under 14 fantasy points since week 9. That was DTR's first start. DTR's first start, he messed up with Jeudy for. They say, hey, throw Jeudy the damn ball. He did that. Don't matter if you win or lose, get Jeudy the ball. So, and I actually think Jeudy, I would take him over some of the Ravens outside cornerbacks. So, I would start him. If he's going to get double-digit targets, then why not?
Yep. There is one element, though, where, look, they are 20-point dogs, and so in theory they should be in a throw script. But just because you're in a throw script doesn't mean that you actually complete the throws or actually stay on the field. The throw script here is most likely like 3 incomplete passes and punt. I don't think that he's going to.
Also, too, though, DTR threw 47 passes last week.
Yes.
He completed 24. So if you could just, if you give him that, then
Bailey Zappe's a better passer than DTR.
And he'll run less.
He is.
He'll run, even though he can run and be mobile, he'll run less than what DTR did.
Jay, when a game reaches a spread like this, I mean literally minus 20, in a game where we know the Ravens are playing to win the North, the Browns are, Myles Garrett's words, they're not going out there and rolling over, but what do you even do with a market like this? This is borderline not unheard of, but just very rare air for a spread.
You just look at it on the minus 20 is like a temperature in Russia.
Yeah.
It's not a
It's a college spread, literally a college, week 1 college spread.
It is insane. And I know, look, the Browns, they want to wreak havoc, and stranger things have happened. I know Myles Garrett talked about how he doesn't care about the sack title and he just wants to win the game. I actually texted Myles, told him that he's a 20-point underdog, and now he just wants to win the sack title, which is a much more realistic goal. But look, I think the thing is that we do have some priors last year where the Ravens, where they needed to beat the Dolphins in the penultimate week of the season, where Lamar wrapped up MVP, and they absolutely destroyed them, and they kept the foot on the gas. And look, this is division on the line. This is a massive game. They're not going to just, they're not going to be pulling starters in the third quarter. They will put the foot on the gas until it is well beyond reach. So, I can't really endorse going all out on Ravens minus 20 just because it's such a massive number.
Right.
And I think Zappe probably showed enough last year that perhaps he can complete passes against a prevent defense and keep the game within 19 points.
Do you think they could score 10 points? I think they can score 10 points.
I think they can score 10 points. Yeah. Now, the Ravens' pass defense is much improved, but still has been susceptible for a lot of this season. I think they can get to 10.
Yeah.
I think the more interesting line to watch in this game would be the Ravens' team total.
Yeah.
Because at what point are they starting to sit on the ball, try to run some clock? It'll be really interesting to follow along with that rather than the full actual spread.
You've seen it when they've actually played against teams that are in the playoffs. You kind of see when they start kind of like that late third quarter, they'll keep Lamar in, but he's handing off the ball. By the fourth quarter, he's out the game. So if it goes anything like that, then that's kind of how you could map it out. But that's the time when the Browns could start catching up on those points, and there is when you lose if you take on that 20-point spread.
Yep. First of all, I don't think I can't recall an island game ever having a spread of 20, and I can't recall a team. The Browns beat the Ravens when they last played. And they're 20-point underdogs. Yeah. As James, they should have lost that game if Kyle Hamilton catches that easy pick at the end. But I don't think the Ravens will be taking the Browns lightly in this one. But yeah, there is some scope, I think, for potentially Bailey Zappe to cover the spread late, backdoor it.
Our next Saturday game, guys, sticking in the AFC North. The Bengals are favored by 2 points at Pittsburgh. The over-under much higher in this one, 48 points. Obviously a ton of fantasy-relevant players in this one, including the Bengals offense as a whole. We did mention T. Higgins is banged up, but you would imagine he's going to play through this. Lawrence, can you trust any Steelers in this game if the Ravens lock up the division before this game is played?
Yeah, I think you could trust them just as much as you would trust them on any other week. It's like Najee Harris. You're not going to feel any different about him, whether it's week 5 or whether it's now. This is why the Steelers are going to come out there to play. They're still playing for the seeding. So I don't think they care who they play against in the playoffs. But once you're in the game, and let's not forget, they're playing against the Bengals. This is a division rival. This is a team they don't want to get in the playoffs, not because they not because people fear the Bengals. And it's their division opponent. Like, knock them out the playoffs. They got all this momentum coming into the game. Now, here you are. You're a playoff team, and you haven't looked great. You want to end the season on a high note, and what better way to do it than a team like the Bengals with Joe Burrow, who's on fire right now?
Do you think that the Steelers' offense is just fundamentally broken, or has it just been a rough 3 weeks?
Well, they don't have an overwhelming amount of talent in the first place, right? When you stack what they're dealing with in the AFC, like you watch these other AFC teams, even a team like the Bengals that's on the outside looking in, you go, man, how do you go, dart for dart with that? When they were without Pickens, that was a huge problem because it just totally limited the field, the depth of the field. It changed the offense for them. But yeah, I think the problem is, like, at this stage of his career, as much as Russ has been a story for them, there are limitations there where it puts so much stress on every other aspect of their team, special teams and defense, and it's hard to play that way over a long course of time rather than in smaller samples.
Yep. And so much of the Pittsburgh success had been that just on the deep ball, and that Russ was connecting disproportionately on these deep balls, mainly to George Pickens. And even when they were having success outside of the deep completions, it wasn't an efficient passing game at all. Now that has dried up a little, there's just not that much to lean on. I don't think that's anyone's fault specifically.
No.
Like, there's just not that many guys in the offense.
If I'm the opposition to the Steelers, I would fear Justin Fields starting in that offense right now more than Russell Wilson. Because you mentioned the deep balls. Justin Fields has done that with George Pickens and can do that. What Russell Wilson can't do is run the ball like Justin Fields. He can't, just imagine a backfield with Justin Fields next to Jalen Warren. Connor, you talked about stress. That'll put stress on the defense right there.
That's the issue, is that you're right, Lawrence. Like, they aren't talented enough on offense to be limiting themselves. And I understand why they made the move to Russ, but there was just more of a ceiling with Fields' rushing.
Yep.
And especially with the rushing attack with Najee, drying up a little bit now. That's the big issue.
There's more of a flaw as well with Fields, just because of the rushing ability that is always there and the rushing threat, which takes him out of the box for Najee and Jalen Warren. But in a game like this, Pittsburgh needs their offense to be TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Cameron Hayward and Nate Herbig generating chaos.
And that's
because
tough.
I think that is the best defensive line in football. And they did wreak chaos the first matchup against the Bengals. Watt gets the strip sack. He sacks Barrow twice. So they're going to need that type of game, I think, to be creating turnovers and putting the Bengals in third and longs.
All right. And there's, it's intriguing when you look at that line, because 48, you go, man, it's the Bengals offense. They're high flying. But then you go, this is an AFC North game, everything on the line. The Steelers will want the Bengals to play a certain way where you think it could hover under that number, but you're just dealing with the risk that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins can burn you on any given moment.
Yeah.
All right, guys, before we get to Sunday games, which there's a lot with some massive point totals, including Sunday Night Football, and on that Sunday night game, division rivals compete to see who will become the Kings of the North. Sam Darnold and the Vikings face Jared Goff and the Lions in the final game of the regular season Sunday, 7 Eastern on NBC and Peacock. What's on Tap is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. Sundays are easy to enjoy when they are full of football and the fridge is filled with beer. Here's the games we're locking in on with Sunday's highest point totals, and we start right there. Because Sunday Night Football, the over-under is 56.5. This is the highest we have seen since the Bills-Lions total, which I believe launched at 54.5. Yeah. Jay, are there any players that you're not starting in this game? Where is the hesitancy with any of these? Look at this list in the rankings. It's insane.
No hesitancy, really. If you are in a matchup still going where you need floor, then Jameson Williams perhaps doesn't have a ton of floor, but he has ceiling, and he's one of the guys who is going to be out there the whole time because the Lions obviously need to win. So, no, this is just an extravaganza. As we mentioned, the point total is 56.5. You may even go over that, to be honest. So, no, I think all of these guys you're starting with confidence.
It's going to be a nice little same-game parlay I could fire up right here.
Yeah, a lot of offense. And, when you look at a total as high as this, Lawrence, you kind of, your eyes widen, 56.5. But with both of these teams, indoors, everything on the line.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones where there's a good reason to believe they could just blow right past it with the big playability both offenses have.
Yeah, well, Jay mentioned Jamison Williams. That's their guy that could get over the top and beat a Minnesota secondary who we don't really consider the best. They're serviceable, but the strength of that Vikings defense is the front seven. Then you go on the other side where you got Sam Darnold. He's been letting it rip this year, over 4,100 passing yards. And you got Jordan Addison and obviously Justin Jefferson, who could both go over the top of the defense versus the Lions defense that's still a little bit banged up as we've seen them get scored on a lot the past few weeks.
Yeah, it's just a perfect recipe for a gargantuan total where you have these two elite offenses that are elite throwing the ball through the air, two quarterbacks playing at a really high level in a dome at night, and also two teams that are pretty solid against the run as well, where I don't think that this game is going to go under because the Lions have a ton of success on the ground or a bleeding clock. Like, I think this is just going to be a shootout through the air throughout.
Our next game, the Panthers at the Falcons. The Falcons are now 8-point favorites. The over-under is 48. Lawrence, this is a matchup between two young quarterbacks that we could see for a long time to come with the resurgence of Bryce Young since he came off the bench and Michael Penix Jr., who's gotten his time to shine. Who are you more optimistic about for next season?
Well, next season it's going to have to be Michael Penix, and I'm not just saying, Michael Penix is outright better than Bryce Young, but the talent there is close. But then you go to the team and the supporting cast. Until we see the Panthers actually surround them with players like a Drake London, a Bijan Robinson, like Chuba Hubbard was serviceable, but we know he's not Bijan level type player. We know the Panthers don't have a receiver that's Drake London type level. So until you get something like that around Bryce Young, I have to go with Michael Penix.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. You could see the instant rapport with him and Drake London, and I think with more practice reps and time, the deep threat connection will come with Darnell Mooney. It was a little bit off. But just having the running back and Bijan to lean on in both the run and pass game, like this Falcons offense is certifiably good. It was just held back by a broken quarterback in Kirk Cousins for a while.
Yep, really solid offensive line. Like, he just has a much better infrastructure than Bryce Young. And just overall, like, we've seen 2 seasons of Bryce Young. And it's not that often that you get a quarterback who gets a third year when you don't really know if he's definitively the answer. But I think Bryce Young has probably shown enough that you have to give him that opportunity. But he seems now the ceiling has significantly reduced on Bryce Young, whereas the ceiling doesn't exist yet for Michael Penix.
Right, it's only 2 games.
If you have any concerns about the markets in this one, both teams playing to win. The Panthers more for pride. The Falcons, playoff hopes still alive. They're not analytically eliminated right now. So
yeah, they'll be playing to win, and obviously they'll need a minor miracle with the Saints beating the Bucs. But at the same time, they'll be going all out. Question to me though, and where this line kind of hinges on, is what do you make of the Falcons' defense, Connor? Because all year they've just been relatively underwhelming. They've been middle of the pack. They made the moves to get Judon and Simmons, and they just don't have a pass rush.
That's the key. They do not have a pass rush.
They never do pass rush. Like, not since
Vic Beasley?
John Abraham?
John Abraham. Because even Vic Beasley
was
a mirage.
Got a lot of sacks against some of the worst teams that year, but Abraham, that was the dude. That's the last time where you could, and we're talking almost 15 years ago. So they just never get a pass rush. But they always get veteran defense like a Judon, like a Edwards a couple years back from Minnesota. So it's like that helps the defensive backs.
They've tried to fill that position in free agency and with multiple draft picks, and it just hasn't worked for them. And in this league, if you can't rush the passer, you're already 2 steps in the grave as a defense. The stress it puts on your secondary, it just makes life way too easy on the quarterback. So this is a weird one where it's it's 2 young quarterbacks and there's been bumps in the road, but this could be a shootout very quietly.
Yeah, could be. And I think the key here is that the Panthers' run defense is just atrocious. And so Bijan Robinson should have a monster day.
Yeah, they don't have the bodies. Our last game, guys, the Commanders obviously playing to win for seeding. They're 6-point favorites against the Cowboys. The over-under is at 44. Jay, you said to me when the week started, you were a little surprised that the Commanders were just 4.5-point favorites. You said you thought it should be priced closer to 6. Well, now it sits wisely at 6.
Yeah, the market sometimes has difficulty in Week 18 just understanding motivation. Like the Bengals were 3 to 3.5 point favorites over the Steelers at the start of the week, and then the market realized, no, the Steelers really want to get the 5 seed. But now that the market has adjusted, the Commanders 6-point favorites, they should be going all out. It is a material difference. I think getting the 6 seed as opposed to the 7, even though they just beat the Eagles. They beat the Eagles with Kenny Pickett, so the Commanders will want to, get the Bucs or the Rams as opposed to falling to the 7 and having to play Philadelphia. So they should be going all out, and I think you just start all your Commanders as normal and with the expectation they'll be playing a full game.
Lawrence, better start this week. Brian Robinson or Rico Dowdle?
I would say Brian Robinson. You saw him get going versus the Falcons defense last week, and I would take, even though what you say, Jay, is true about the Falcons defense and their inconsistency, I'd take them right now over the Cowboys defense. So
Sure.
I expect, a better matchup for Robinson, a better matchup for everybody. I expect them to be near that goal line early and often. So I like Robinson's chances way more to get a touchdown than Rico Dowdle, who's been good the second half of the season, but I don't expect him to do what Bijan Robinson was able to do to the Commanders.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with this one because Jaden Daniels, obviously, they are playing for seeding, but you do wonder if the Commanders get into a blowout script. As we talked about, do they try to get Ertz his incentives? Do they take Jaden Daniels out of the game and protect him? Like, this is a very
I don't know if
cautious.
Ertz could get that. Like,
The
with
2
them
touchdowns
playing,
is the only one.
Yeah, like,
And it's not something you could force feed.
Yeah, he just got that. So if they're in the part where they're still in the game, still trying to build that lead, it's like, I'm not looking at Zach Ertz. I'm looking who's open, or I'm looking if I could run in the end zone, or I'm giving it to Brian Robinson. So that one is tough. He got the hardest incentives out of all of them guys we talked about.
He's plus 900 to get 90 receiving yards. I think that is something where that only becomes interesting to bet on if he does have a long reception early on, and then all of a sudden it's the third quarter and he's got 56 receiving yards. It's like, all right, well, now we're kind of in business. But until that point, no, I don't think it's going to happen.
That'll do it for What's on Tap, presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. We are taking one more break, but when we're back, it's last call with a little bit of a twist. We got pickup lines, but Lawrence and Jay pitching me going into the weekend. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
It is yours.
Go, Lawrence. Good, strong finish. All right, guys, last call as we take a look at the matchups with the highest spreads for the final week of the season. Yes, the Baltimore Ravens are nearly 3-touchdown favorites over the Browns. The Chiefs and Broncos is now up to 10.5 in favor of the Broncos, as the Chiefs are expected to rest most of their starters. The Packers are 10-point favorites over the Bears. The Falcons 8-point favorites over the Panthers. And then the Seahawks now, that line has totally moved the other way, Jay, as the Rams, despite seeding being at play, resting just about everyone.
It's quite peculiar that everyone's just, I guess McVay is making the right decision. He must know what's going on with Stafford, but yeah, it's going to it'll make a small dent to their playoff chances if they do drop to the 4 seed from the 3 seed as expected now, should the Bucs and Seahawks win. I just need Bo Nix not to screw me, Connor. I don't trust him.
Wish you luck. Yeah.
I don't trust him
You made your own bed with that one. What is on the line here for you?
Well, I have Patrick Surtain to win Defensive Player of the Year, which I would not feel great if they lose to the Chiefs in Week 18 instead of point dogs. Now I've got Broncos to make the playoffs as well, but just Bo Nix, just kind of play it safe. Let's run the ball. Let's pick off Carson Wentz a couple of times, and let's get out of there with a dubby. Connor, my pickup line is a quarterback who I trust infinitely more than Bo Nix. Wouldn't have said this. Certainly coming into the season, but Samuel Darnold, who is now the favorite for comeback player of the year, now that everyone knows that he is eligible. It's flipped. He's now the favorite.
When we did the show yesterday, he was plus 170.
Yeah, he's now
or
the
plus
favorite.
120.
Yeah, the word got out that he's eligible, and he's just flipped into favorite in the market. What a market, again. But I'm going to the well with Sam Darnold, over 280.5 passing yards. And here is why. One, the total is 56.5, so I expect that he's going to need to throw in a shootout, but here's the main reason. The Detroit Lions, they play more man coverage than any team in the league with Aaron Glenn. That's just how they're going to play. You know who has the highest success rate in the NFL against man coverage? That would be Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings passing game. So I think that just with the fact that there is that success element, and the fact too that the Detroit defense is just so banged up at this point, they've been lit up repeatedly through the air. I think that Darnold will get to 281 passing yards at least.
All right, Lawrence, what do you got?
He might get 381.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the Ravens here. We talked about them earlier in their spread. Now, I'm not interested in that spread. I want nothing to do with anything that has twos in front of it when it comes to a spread, right? But I will say this. The Ravens to score 31 to 40 points. In between 31 to 40 points, that's at plus 185. Thing is, they've scored 31 to 35 points in 3 straight games. 2 of those games were versus the Texans versus Steelers, 2 teams who will be in the playoffs. So I have high confidence that they could get there. It can get ugly, and when I say ugly, I mean the up. Right? We could get because you talked about them beating the Dolphins last year. The Dolphins went to the playoffs, and the Ravens dropped 56 on them. So, but I think this is how it goes. They get out in front, pretty much like how the Texans game went. Get out in front. Lamar start handing the ball off, call the dogs off. And then at that time, they got like 38 points. Browns got 0. Browns go get their little 12, 13 points, and we call it a day. So I'm going to go with the Ravens, 31 to 40 points.
Plus 180?
Plus 185, yeah.
It's interesting. Both really good bets. I am a little fearful that MVP Lamar and with the efforts of maybe a defensive touchdown for the Ravens do surpass that. That's actually where I'm actually fearful that the Ravens score 44 points, 45 points in this game.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Jay because, like you said, the Lions defense, they're running out of people. Their offense almost does it to themselves as well where it puts you in a pass funnel, right? The Lions score so quickly that the other team is throwing. Darnold, who has burned me in the past as a Jets fan, but has been remarkable this year under Kevin O'Connell. I like him to go over 280.
Yeah, over 280 and a half.
But if you're looking for a plus money play, that is a great play.
Isn't it funny though, so the total in Ravens-Browns is 41. The line is 20 and a half. So the expected score line is 31-10.
Yes.
But it feels like that bet loses with them scoring 41 as opposed to 30, right?
Like it
That's
could
kind
get
of the gut feel. Is
right.
It's
On the defensive touchdown
that's my
at the
fear.
end.
Seems improbable the Ravens would only score 29 points or whatever in this game.
And even if the thing with the Ravens is they could hand the ball to a backup running back and it still breaks off for 60 yards. It's like, this wasn't even supposed to happen.
Mitchell can do that.
Right, exactly.
He can do it as well as Derrick Henry could do it if we're talking about breakaway runs.
Well, it's going to be a fun Week 18. A lot of incentives on the line and a lot of great matchups with playoff implications on the line. We'll be back on Monday to cover it all. For Jay and Lawrence, I'm Connor. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.